Okay, so in this part of the video, we are going to go over some of the other components that aren't directly related to the aristos themselves. So we went over character cards, initiative cards, and tactics in the previous video. This time we're going to be talking about the other components. So in the basic box set, it comes with a board, the game board, which is reversible. I think I said it plays on a 2x2, which is kind of true. I mean, it's the hexadome itself is, I think it's about 18 inches wide at its broadest, so from point to point. But you can see it is a folding board, and then you have these two dashboards that are attached to the board as well. Like I said, the board is reversible, so you have the other side here, this map, which is, it's really only kind of slightly different. There are additional walls and that kind of thing in this side, but really for the most part you're going to be playing in the hexadome, and then there are alternate maps that you can buy right now that are neoprene mats that are for the game as well. Okay, so some important components to the actual game map itself. Note that you have these numbered deployment zones 1 through 6 going around the hexadome. You have the central deployment zone there. And then the board also has a couple of other items that are worth interacting, or that are that you interact with. So you can see these spaces here, these black hex spaces with the little lock on them. Those are actually barriers. So those actually block line of sight. It's best to imagine them as like a physical wall or a barrier. And then depending on the scenario, you're going to have these little obstacles. Okay, so these obstacles are placed on the board like that. While they don't block line of sight, they grant cover if a model is adjacent to that. So for example, let's say you have this model here. So you have Maximus there, and then you have Dart here in the bottom of your screen trying to shoot at Maximus. So because there is this obstacle here would block some of the lines between this base and this base, the Maximus model is said to benefit from cover. Okay, and so cover in this game grants you an extra black die on the combat roll. Okay, so while this isn't a requirement, one of the cool things you can do with Aristeia is that there's a number of third-party companies out there that sell 3D terrain sets for Aristeia. So you could see, like I said, well, all I did was I placed the barriers at the appropriate point and the obstacles at the appropriate point. And especially for you miniature players, this gives you a lot better reference with regards to, does a model have line of sight to another one? Does a model have cover versus another one? So that's a neat little option there. These are 3D printed obstacles and barriers by Aristeia laser cutting. So anyways, just a cool little idea. It's not absolutely necessary, but it makes the board look cool, and I love it. So just thought I would show that off here as part of this. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the player dashboard, or the player control panel. So the basic box set comes with two of these, one for the orange team and one for the green team. And so there are just several different parts to this control panel, and really just kind of makes it easier for you to understand what's going on, understand the game state as you play it, right? So the first thing that jumps out at you is you can see that there are 4 slots for initiative cards here. Obviously, this is where you're going to place face down at the start of the turn your essentially the activation order of the characters on your team. So you're going to play them face down at the start of each round. You're going to turn over each player is going to turn over the initiative card of that first slot. They're going to compare which characters have has the highest initiative, and then they may also, in the case of a tie, refer to who has the underdog, and that's going to determine that player who wins this initiative will determine activation order. Okay, on this side of the panel, you have a couple of things here. This is basically the bench. So as a player is coming in from the bench, you can see that they marked it with a -2 energy state. That's a penalty for an Aristo coming in from the bench. And then here you have an energy meter. Okay, so this is an easy way for you to kind of track energy, or generically, maybe that would be considered AP. A lot of characters start with 5 energy. So for example, you might go 5 energy there. And then on this side of the board, you can see the little boot here. This is for movement counters. Okay, so or your movement points. So in a typical activation, a character may spend 2 energy to gain 4 movement points, right? So then you would fill up this up to 4, and then the character would then take their move. What's interesting about this is that this is done during an activation, so you can spend a couple of movement points and then perform an action using some other energy that you might have, and then you can continue to spend your movement points until they've run out. All right, this side here, this is a turn counter, so you could keep track of what turn you're on. And then over here, you have the infirmary. This is where players that have, characters that have just been eliminated, they've suffered their final wound, are removed from the board, and then they're placed here until the end of the turn. At the start of the next turn, they'd move over to the bench with a -2 energy penalty. One last note about the control panel is I like the control panel, but as you can see, this is an opportunity for third-party manufacturers to make something really nice. One thing that is kind of missing from the control panel is where do you put your victory points? So where do you put your VPs and where do you put your frag counters as you earn those? They don't account for that here in the dashboard. Okay, so in the final part of this part on components, we are going to talk about the special Aristeia dice. Okay, so full disclosure, I don't like special dice. It always kind of bugged me. It was a component, and I always feel in most games it's just kind of an unnecessary component, like those games that have like only swords on their dice, and you're like, well, you could just be rolling like a standard D6 or something like that if you wanted to do that. Aristeia uses specialized dice, which, like I said, I don't really like on general principle. However, it actually has a pretty good use in this game, and that use is triggers. Okay, so we're going to go over kind of the different kinds of dice. This will also help you interpret the different strengths of different characters or aristos in Aristeia. All right, so starting with black dice. Black dice are kind of terrible dice usually, but they're used in specialized scenarios. Like I said earlier, they grant, if you benefit from cover, you gain a black die. And a black die is really just 3 blank spaces and then 3 spaces with shields. All right, so not very impressive, but depending on what character you're running, this could be a really nice thing. Some characters have some fantastic triggers off of shields, right? So moving up the chain, you got yellow dice. Now, yellow dice are actually what I consider to really be the trigger dice, because this is, if you look, there's only 1 blank face on yellow die, and then you have 2 of the special exclamation points. So again, that's for, those are typically spent on triggers, and then you have some nice, you have a few nice results here. So you can have 2 exclamation points and a star. You can have a shield and the exclamation point. So that's like a full trigger for a lot of different characters. And then the final space is kind of really the nice one that gives you 1 of each. So yellow dice are pretty nice. They're also, you can gain a yellow dice from the focus effect or the focus tactics card. Moving up the chain, then you got the blue dice. Okay, so blue dice are typically considered defensive dice. Again, 1 blank space on blue dice. And then you've got a single shield, you've got a single star, you've got that awesome result there, which is 1 of each. You got a star and a shield, and then you get 2 shields and the exclamation point there. So slightly more defensive here on the blue die. Moving up, now you go to orange. Orange and blue are kind of analogs. The orange is going to be a little bit more offensive, so you can gain, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. On the blue die, you can gain blue die typically from block tactics and that sort of thing. Orange dies are usually from aim, like aim, fire, and that kind of thing. So again, 1 blank face, 1 star, 1 shield, 1 of each. Then 1 of each with the exclamation point. And then you've got at the top of that, you got 2 stars with the exclamation point, okay? So now we're going into the top tier dice, which are the green and the red. The red is the more offensive of the 2 dice, 1 blank, 1 star. You can see there's almost no shields on this, so star and an exclamation point. 2 stars, exclamation point. So 2 of the faces are star and exclamation point. Then 2 stars, exclamation, and then you've got critical hit here. This will go. This will. I believe this goes right through a shield. Now the only thing that can block a crit is on the next die, which is the green die. And this is the top tier defensive base die. Now, unfortunately, the green die does have 2 blank faces, so not that great. But on the other faces, you get a shield, 2 shields and an exclamation, a shield and exclamation, and then you have critical block, which is actually the most powerful symbol in the game because critical block can nullify an entire die. So even if you got, a really good result, like say, 2 stars and the, if you're the offensive player, you got 2 stars and an exclamation point, the critical block will remove the die entirely. In fact, critical block is the only result that can remove a critical hit. So a critical success can be removed. The die entirely can be removed because that's the rule of critical block. It doesn't care what face is on that die. It just removes that die entirely. Okay, so that is going to do it for this section of Aristeia game components. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.